Let's talk about those issues and talk about what we also spoke about this morning, and that is front page news in many of the newspapers this morning. It is the matter of carding, something that we've talked about a lot on this program. We've heard from police chiefs. We've heard from people who have been stopped by police. Your government has announced that it's going to end carding in terms of arbitrary stops. Why that change now?
Well, actually, that's a position that we have taken for some time, Matt. There was a discussion in the legislature yesterday as a result of a private member's bill, but many weeks ago, the Minister of Community Safety and Correctional Services, Yasser Naqvi, made it clear that we will not tolerate random arbitrary stops strictly for the purpose of gathering information when there's no reason for those stops. So we have been clear about that. He is going to be making an announcement very shortly about the results of the consultation that he's done. So that's the position that we have taken. And this is not just a Toronto issue. When he and I talked about it a number of months ago, actually, I wanted to be clear that we weren't just dealing with the Toronto or a GTA issue, because although it is an issue in our urban centres, if you go to northern communities, other communities around the province, there are similar issues that, for example, Aboriginal young men may face. So we need to stop this, and it's a culture shift.
Do you believe that it is, as people who have been stopped by police, that it is a racist discriminatory practice?
I believe that when I as I just said in my first comment, there's a cultural shift here that needs to happen, and I think that people, including police officers, make decisions based on all sorts of assumptions. And, I can't pull all those apart. But what I know is that it's happening to certain groups of people. So it's happening to Black men. It's happening to Aboriginal men. It's happening to people who are visible minorities. And so we can draw a conclusion from that. It has to stop. And we need to deal with the issues that underpin that.
But you won't use that language that many of those people who have been stopped, who've spoken on this program, have used, saying that it is discriminatory, that it's racist, please.
Well, where it is racist and discriminatory, absolutely, I will use that language for sure, and I'm not afraid of using that language. I think we all have to understand that in our society, those themes, those issues still exist, but this practice has to stop, and we've got to find ways to work together to make sure it does.
Just finally on this, under what circumstances would police be able to stop people?
Well, that is exactly why it's taken the minister some time to come to a conclusion in conversations with people across the province. As you say, there are many, many people who have information and who have a stake in getting this right. So he will be making an announcement shortly, because it's one of these issues that can be boiled down to a soundbite, but we do it an injustice by not recognizing that there's complexity. So we have to ban that discriminatory, random, arbitrary practice, but we also have to understand that police have to be able to do their job. So that's exactly what the minister will be speaking to.
Moving on. Who do you think's angrier with you and your government, teachers or doctors?
So, well, I don't think it's a contest who's going to be angrier at Kathleen. But here's the theme that connects these two stories, Matt. We are, as other jurisdictions around the continent, quite frankly, we're dealing with having to find ways to rein in costs and having to deal with expanding healthcare costs on the one hand, and having to make sure that we are making increases where it will influence the excellence of our healthcare system, the excellence of our education system, and that has meant that we've been having difficult conversations. We're in a difficult financial situation. There's no doubt about that. So we've had challenging conversation with teachers and with education workers, a challenging conversation with doctors. But in both cases, we know as a government how important it is that we have a good relationship with them.
So doctors say there's no conversation happening. You've unilaterally imposed cuts. Let's talk about the doctors first, and we'll get to teachers and the education workers in a moment. Why did your government unilaterally impose those cuts?
So there were a set of rules set up with the doctors that were agreed upon both by the government and the doctors. Doctors occupy a sort of unique place in the labor on the labor continuum. They're not a union, but they have an association, and they have had conversations with us about what the rules would be. We followed those rules. We couldn't come to an agreement. There were many proposals put forward. The doctors didn't accept them. We brought in a mediator. So Justice Warren Winkler came in. He looked at the proposals that were on the table, and he recommended to both sides that the doctors that this is the agreement, or these were the conditions that should be put in place. So we moved ahead to implement the proposal that was on the table.
Doctors dispute that. Doctors say that this is a unilateral cut, that this is not just one cut, it's a series of cuts, and that it puts not just their livelihood, but the health of Ontarians at risk.
But this is about compensation. It's about physician compensation, Matt. And I am very pleased that our doctors are well compensated. They have the highest compensation of any physicians across the country,
but they also
and in
pay
other jurisdictions.
But out of that compensation, they pay for things like, in this city, overhead. They pay for rent, which is very expensive. And they would say that
Matt, some do. Some don't have those overhead costs. So, there are different within the term doctor. There are different kinds of practitioners. And one of the conversations that our health minister wants to have is, how do we differentiate? How do we make sure that people are compensated in a way that reflects the different challenges that they have? We need to have that discussion. The minister has asked the OMA now to have a conversation, to come back and do that. But we followed the rules, Matt, and we have to constrain healthcare costs. We have a healthcare system that is dealing with an aging demographic. There are huge challenges around home care and making sure that people get the care that they need where they need it, and we need to make those investments.
Doctors are angry, and doctors say, we'll leave this province, that we will leave Ontario because it's too expensive for us to do our work here.
Well,
are you worried about that?
Well, and I would say to those doctors, I hope that you will look around at other jurisdictions and you will realize that you are very well compensated compared to other jurisdictions. And quite frankly, Matt, I know of many doctors who have left and have come back, because practicing medicine in Ontario it's a wonderful healthcare system that we have, and we want to keep it that way.
Let's talk about education. The Elementary Teachers Federation saying that they'll stop extracurriculars as of Wednesday if there's no new deal. We have principals who are saying schools are unsafe. We heard from a parent who says that the schools, if this was a restaurant, they would be shut down because of the state of schools. There are now reports suggesting that report cards could be held back. When is this going to end?
Well, and that's exactly why yesterday morning I sent a letter to school board representatives and representatives of the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario and the support workers from OSSTF and CUPE to say, I need you to come in. We need to have a conversation. The minister and I need to talk to you. I did this in July, Matt, and sat down with all of our partners and asked them whether it was possible to get a deal by the end of, by Labor Day. That didn't necessarily happen, but we have deals with 3 of the teachers groups. So the majority of teachers in this province, the organizations we have agreements with. So there's one teachers federation with whom we don't have an agreement, and there are a couple of support staff groups that we don't have agreements with. We need to get those agreements. I know parents are frustrated. I know students are frustrated.
But the concern is that schools could be closed down, not because of the work of teachers and what they're doing, but because of the state of schools, that they may actually be unsafe for kids to be in.
And that is a huge, huge concern, obviously, and it's why I have asked them. I asked them yesterday morning to come in this morning. I am going to be meeting with them. I will be making a statement after that meeting, and I think it will be clear to people the direction that we're going.
What are you going to say?
I think I should say it to them first.
Why is your government giving $1 million checks to teachers' unions?
So the discussions that we've been having with the teachers have all been within a net zero framework, Matt. We were very clear that there was no new money for compensation. We've been spending hours, literally thousands of hours, talking with the school board partners and the education workers, and all of the proposals that are on the table. Any of the money that's on the table is all within that net zero. There is no new money going into teacher compensation or into the negotiations.
But the Globe and Mail is reporting about these $1 million checks going to these unions. Where's the money coming from?
Well,
why are you paying unions to do what they do, which is negotiate?
Well, so the reality is that there is a cost associated with the negotiations. And as I said, there are thousands of hours associated with sitting down with the school boards and with the teachers' federations and with the unions to come to agreement. And there are costs associated with that. And it is not unusual that there would be a sharing of those costs. But all of that money is part of that net zero.
So where is it coming from?
Well, it's part of the cost of getting an agreement. It's part of the cost of doing the business. Every time there's a negotiation, Matt, there is a cost associated with that. And we're talking about a $20 billion plus dollar endeavor. And so the fact is that there is a cost associated with coming to agreements.
Is it being taken from other programs?
Absolutely not. And that net zero, when we talked about the net zero parameters, none of the proposals that are on the table are about taking money from other programs. It's about within the compensation packages of the workers.
Just a final bit about education, and this is about what we've been talking about over the last little while. We've seen, and you know this in Thorncliffe Park, parents pulling kids out of schools because of the new health and physical education curriculum. In your riding, Rob Oliphant was saying that he was knocking on doors and people were bringing up, despite the fact that it's a provincial issue, not a federal issue, people were bringing up sex ed at the doors. We know that there are schools that are being set up to keep kids out of the health and physical education curriculum. What do you think is behind this?
So, Matt, it's a very small number of parents who remain concerned. I mean, I understand. I went to the school and talked with the teachers. I have talked with many parents about their concerns. The fact is, we had to update the health and physical education curriculum.
But what do you think is behind the protest?
Well, I think you and I have talked about this before, and you've had people on your show who have acknowledged that there are issues of homophobia. There are issues of concern around kids getting information earlier than parents might want. And I understand those concerns, but I think that what we have seen over the course of the federal election, because Rob Oliphant won in that riding, and he talked to thousands of parents about many issues. Some parents raised this issue with him, and he made it clear that it's important that kids have the information that they need so they can be safe with the internet, with all of the technology that wasn't in place in 1998.
Those protests continue, though. So what will you do to reach out to those people who have still pulled their kids out, who are still very angry with the government for introducing that curriculum?
So here's my greatest concern, and I can speak as the MPP for that particular community, but also as the Premier. My biggest concern about the way that issue was dealt with is that there were rifts that were created in the community on a misunderstanding of what was actually in the curriculum. So my intention, now that the federal election is over and we can take a little bit of the capital P politics out of it, is to do everything in my power to make sure people have the information that they need. The principals in the schools have been doing an amazing job.
To them, yeah.
An amazing job, and they deserve an enormous amount of credit. But we need to now make sure they have all the supports that they need to inform parents, but also to heal those rifts, because it's not good for communities to be divided because of a lack of understanding about what's going to keep their kids safe.
Is a week like this and being the Premier a bit like facing a fire hose?
Trying to drink from a fire hose?
Well, it's just a lot coming at you.
That's kind of my life. So it's a huge honor, and we will get through these challenges because we have a wonderfully strong province, and we have strong healthcare and strong education, and I believe in those institutions as being definitional to who we are as Ontarians. That's why we'll get through this.
It's great to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you very much.